As the night wore on, they grew tired. Jane yawned, feeling the weight of the day catch up to her. "I should probably get some sleep," she said, standing up. "It's been great talking to you, James. Thank you for stopping by." James stood up as well, his eyes sparkling in the dim light. "It's been my pleasure, Jane," he said. "I hope we can talk again soon." They said their goodbyes, and Jane watched as James walked down the beach and disappeared into the night. As she settled back into bed, she couldn't help but think about James. There was something about him that had captured her heart. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that this was just the beginning of their story. Over the next few days, Jane and James crossed paths again and again. They met on the beach, had coffee at a local cafe, and went for long walks under the stars. Each moment they spent together only deepened their connection, and Jane knew that she was falling for James. On the 5th night of her stay, James surprised her with a candlelit dinner on the beach. He had set up a table, complete with flowers, candles, and a feast of seafood and wine. Jane was touched by his thoughtfulness, and she knew that this was a moment she would never forget. As they ate and talked, Jane felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had never felt so at home with someone before. James was kind, funny, and smart, and she couldn't imagine her life without him. As the night wore on, they found themselves walking along the shore. James took her hand, and they strolled in silence, listening to the sound of the waves crashing against the sand. Finally, James stopped and turned to her. "Jane," he said, his voice low and intense. "I have to tell you something." Jane looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had a feeling she knew what was coming, but she was too scared to say it out loud. "I know we haven't known each other for long," James said. "But I feel like I've known you forever. I can't imagine my life without you, and I want to spend every moment with you. Will you be mine?" Tears welled up in Jane's eyes as she looked at him. She knew that she had fallen for him completely, and there was no turning back. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be yours." And with that, James swept her up into his arms and kissed her under the moonlight. The rest of the night was a blur of passion and love, as they made love on the beach under the stars. The next morning, Jane woke up to the sound of James cooking breakfast in the kitchen. She smiled to herself, feeling a sense of contentment that she had never known before. As they ate breakfast together, James told her about his plans for the future. He wanted to travel the world with her, to see every corner of the earth and experience all the wonders it had to offer. Jane listened, feeling like she was living in a dream. She couldn't believe that she had found someone like James, someone who loved her so deeply and completely. As the week came to a close, Jane knew that it was time to leave. She packed her bags and said goodbye to James, promising to keep in touch and visit again soon. As she walked down the beach, tears streaming down her face, she couldn't help but feel like a part of her was staying behind. She knew that James had changed her life forever. After leaving the beach, Jane returned home and tried to settle back into her routine. But she found that she couldn't stop thinking about James. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still feel the warmth of his embrace and the softness of his lips. She tried to distract herself with work and social engagements, but nothing seemed to fill the void that James had left in her heart. Finally, after weeks of restlessness, Jane decided to take the plunge and call James. They talked for hours, catching up on everything that had happened since they last saw each other. Jane found herself laughing and smiling in a way she hadn't since she left the beach. Before they hung up, James asked her to come back and visit him. Jane hesitated, knowing that she was putting herself in a vulnerable position. But something in her heart told her that she had to take the risk. So she booked a flight and returned to the beach. As soon as she saw James waiting for her at the airport, she knew that she had made the right decision. They spent the next few days picking up where they left off, exploring the island and each other's hearts. Jane felt like she was living in a dream, and she never wanted it to end. On their last night together, James took her to a secluded cove. He had set up a campfire, and they sat together under the stars, watching the flames dance in the darkness. "Jane," James said, turning to her. "I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. I love you more than anything in this world, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. Will you marry me?" Jane gasped, feeling like her heart was about to burst. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face, and nodded. Yes, she whispered. I will. James pulled out a ring, a beautiful diamond that sparkled in the firelight. He slipped it onto her finger, and they held each other in a tight embrace. The rest of the night was a blur of passion and love, as they made love under the stars. When the sun began to rise, they curled up together, wrapped in each other's arms. As they drifted off to sleep, Jane knew that she had found her soulmate. She had never felt so loved, so cherished, so alive. She knew that their journey was just beginning, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take them. Years went by, and Jane and James built a life together. They traveled the world, had children, and grew old together. But no matter how much time passed, they never forgot the magic of that first week on the beach. As they held hands on the porch of their home, watching the sunset over the ocean, Jane knew that she had found the greatest love of all. And as she leaned in for a kiss, she felt like she was back on the beach, watching the stars dance in the sky, and dreaming of a future full of endless possibilities.